consecutive education. I'm going to share the slide. So, Under, can I share the slide?
Yes, you can. Please.
Okay, thank you. So, all right. So Vietnam UK Institute for Research and Executive Education is an international public university, and it is a member of University of Da Nang. Our school is still a small university, and this year we are welcoming a 100% increase in the number of students. So currently we have around only 400 students. I'm looking for the Department of Languages and Foundation Studies. My topic today is about nomin writing. And when I started to teach English, I spent a considerable amount of my time on teaching reading, giving correct and written corrective feedback, and also scoring students' papers. And throughout my 9 years of scoring student papers, I'm still not confident with my scoring reliability and consistency. I want to give students an accurate score. So that's why in my master degree, in my master thesis, I conducted a research as regards nomin writing. What are some practices that other expert graders have conducted in order to improve their writing, their scoring, consistency, and validity? And I also would love to know what are some practices like native English speakers as well as like non-native English speakers can apply in their own teaching and learning and scoring in order to improve their scoring validity. So that's why I come up with the topic for the workshop today. So this is a workshop. So I will be leading you through like the steps in order to reach a consensus in creating standardized writing tasks. There will be like some parts. I will be asking for your perspectives. So please feel free to share your perspectives in your chat box at any time during my presentation. Thank you. Before I start, I would like to know if you are familiar with some examples of standardized writing tasks. So when we talk about standardized writing tasks, probably we think of IELTS and TOEFL liability. So they are the two most popular standardized writing tasks. But in today's workshop, I would like to focus on the IELTS. That will be more relevant to my teaching practice. And also for our presentation, for your convenience, I'm going to send you the two links. To first, the prompt. We will be looking at a writing prompt and student sample work, and also the writing rubric in order to assign a student writing paper a score. So I will be sharing them with you via the chat box. So for your convenience, you can download the files and so chat box. Okay, and later on I will refer to them. Okay, so the chat box. Hello?
Yes. We are waiting to
Yes,
receive
yes,
the
yes.
link. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you. Yes, I just sent the true links to the student writing, to the writing prompt, student sample work and the rubric. So please download the files for your later use. Thank you. All right. Let me continue with briefly talk about the rating criteria or the rating, the scoring rubric of IELTS and TOEFL liability. As you may already be aware, for the IELTS, they are using an analytic writing rubric in which the writing paper is scored based on 4 criteria: the task achievement, the cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. And so the raters have to assign certain scores for each criterion before coming up with the final overall score. However, for the TOEFL liability, they are applying a holistic writing rubric. What is a holistic writing rubric? It is like all of the descriptions of a certain band score will be put in one band score. So you will not categorize them into separate criteria like the IELTS. So that's for the writing rubrics. And before we continue, I can see that there are some participants in the workshop today. So I would like to know some background information from you. So on my next slide, you can see some questions. Number 1, have you ever scored IELTS writing before? And if yes, how many years? Are you familiar with the IELTS writing rubric? And number 4, what do you think of your scoring performance? Accurate, not accurate, or depends? So please type your answers to the questions in the chat box. Thank you. Let's spend around like 2 minutes for you to type your answers. Okay, so I will see the answer from Miss Nguyễn Thanh Vân, Mr. William Lewis, Mr. Ngọc Đức, and somebody I couldn't see the name. So it seems like Miss Vân and Lewis and also Mr. Đức, they have like experience in teaching IELTS and also like scoring IELTS. So Mr. Đức has 3 years in scoring IELTS. Wow. And chị Vân has around 10 years. Wow. So like you are on experienced raters of IELTS. And for Lewis, he thinks his scoring performance is like somehow it's not easy. I agree. It depends, right? Even for I think for the expert writers. Thank you, everyone, for your answers. And I guess thầy Đức, he has 3 years scoring IELTS, or like chị Vân, you have 10 years scoring IELTS. So probably like you may be already aware that rating behaviors are diverse, are different. And we have a variety of rating behaviors across the raters. So let me introduce you to a research conducted by Tim McNamara. He wrote a book about measuring second language performance and over 3 decades ago. And in his research, he identified some 4 different rating behaviors. So number one, raters may be different in the scoring because of their tendency to leniency. Take myself as an example. I'm a lenient rater. When I look at a writing paper, if I see that students' handwriting is neat, I probably have a better view, better assessment for the students' papers. And if I like the student, they can use very academic words, for example, like evident, obvious. So I also like appreciate their work. However, as far as I know, one of my previous colleagues, he used to be a soldier for 9 years. And when I shared with him some of the writing papers, his writing score is like much lower than like the average writing scores of other teachers. So it's just to show that like the tendency to leniency is one of the most important factors that can affect our rating behavior. And also, besides the leniency, we might have certain bias to certain candidates or types of tasks. Let's say, especially like, for example,
We are really sorry for the technical problem. Maybe it's the internet connection are losing. So the speaker are trying to connect to our room. As luckily, we saw a message from Charlie in the chat spot. So it's going to connect to the room again.
I'm sorry. The internet connection is somehow not stable.
It's no problem. We are still waiting for you.
Thank you, Anda. So I guess while I was out for a few moments, you had time to take a look at the slides, and you can see the other rating behaviors on the slide by us. So we may sometimes, some days we can be very confident, we feel good. So we can assign like a more generous scores than the other days when we feel down and disappointed, for example. And also how we interpret the rating rubric may differently, may also affect how we assign a score. For example, like on the IELTS writing rubric, there is the description of the lexical result use a limited range of vocabulary, and then so some of my colleagues may think limited range only includes basic vocabulary, but some other people may think limited range can include the vocabulary that belong to the PET or B1 level, for example. So it's for the rating behavior, and so for the approach. So when you assign a score to a certain papers, you may start to be aware of how you assign a score. For example, I will be reading the papers twice. The first time I read to understand the general information, if the paper is easy to follow. And for the second reading, I will be looking more closely to the language. So, and then I will assign a score. So that kind of scoring approach is called principled two-scan approach. And some of you may have like a pragmatic two-scan approach. Also, you read the papers, student's paper choice, but you try to come up with the score from the first reading, not the second one. The second one only happens when you couldn't assign a score in the first reading. And some of you may also apply the read-through approach, in which you read through the paper and you identify the strong and the weak points before assigning a score. And for the last scoring approach, provisional mark approach, you will be reading the papers for the first half, and then you start to assign a score, and you continue with the second half to confirm, either to confirm your previous assessment or to refuse your assessment. So there are some scoring approaches that Milanovic and Savi have written in their own paper. They have conducted like several methods to 16 raters in order to find out the scoring approaches. So it could be great if you can share like in the chat box what scoring approach you think you are applying with all of us. Thank you. Principled two-scan approach, pragmatic two-scan approach, the read-through, or the provisional mark approach. Thank you, William. So you are more like, I find it interesting because sometimes it can be difficult, right? You read the first half and then assign a score, and only the second half later. Interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing. So for the IELTS test, they also suggested some ways when we score, what will be some steps we can apply in order to assign a score. And the following list procedure I would like to introduce is from like a book written by Cambridge. It's about examining writing, and in this book, there is a table with 9 steps, and you can quickly take a look on at the slide. Okay, to see the suggested procedure by Cambridge. Look through the 4 criteria in order, starting first with task achievement or task response, noting the length requirement, for example. And each criterion start with overarching that most closely matches the feature. So basically, we will be, after reading student papers, we will be reading the rubrics and try to find which overarching statement or description that correctly reflect the language in the papers. And also, after that, we also check if the positive features of that band are evident in the script. And then you will, for the remaining steps, you will be reading the descriptors below and above. So below to make sure that like there's no penalties or ceilings that are relevant, and above to make sure that your rating is accurate. And then for step 7, 8, and 9, you will be writing the number of words and the band score. And the Cambridge, in the Cambridge book, they also suggested that you should rate on task 1 and task 2 responses together so that you can see the performance, writing performance of one candidate. So there are some suggested steps by Cambridge. All right, thank you for listening to me. I have gone over some theories and studies conducted for rating criteria and rating behaviors. And FI, you already be aware, one of the most popular practices in order to improve our writing consistency and validity is through norming. So norming, what is norming? Norming is basically a session or just say a part. All of the teachers in your team, in your department will sit together at the desk, and first you will start to review the prompt, the writing prompt or the topic, and then the rubric. And then you score the sample student work individually using the rubric. The next step, after you already assign a score for a student sample, you will discuss why do I assign a 7 for task achievement, but your colleague may assign only a 5 for task achievement, for example. So you have to present all of the evidence you find in the writing, and convince other writers, other teachers that your scores can be the most accurate one, for example. And finally, in the norming, it would be, I think the final step may not be applicable in every situation, but if possible, you can compare your department scores to an expert scoring in order to see if your scoring has been accurate from the testing agency point of view, for example. So let's go with me through the 4 steps for the norming writing. And this is my first time to conduct a norming writing online, and I feel so excited. So the first step, reviewing the prompt and the rubric. So now, can you open the files, the links to the prompt and the student sample that I have shared with you at the beginning of the workshop? So can you open the file? And in the file, you will see the pie chart, our writing prompt. And on the right, just like the description, the charts describe information about the ages of populations of 2 countries, Germany and Italy in 2000, and the projections for 2050. Okay, so are you on? Have you on opened your files? Okay, can you already see the file? Please say yes or something in the chat box so that I'm aware that you are following me. Thank you. Thank you, William. Okay, thank you, thầy Đức. All right, so it seems like you already see this writing prompt. So in the first step, when we have the writing prompt, we, as a team, we will be discussing what will be some features that we will be looking for in the students' responses. For example, the task achievement. What do students need to mention in the introduction, overview, body 1, body 2, and what will be some language features that we will be looking for when we assign a student scores for lexical resources or grammar, for example. So please take a moment to look at the pie charts, and maybe you can write down some of your notes as regards how you would describe the pie chart, for example. Okay, so let's spend 2 minutes for you to look at the pie charts. Okay, and please let me know once you have finished looking at the pie chart and coming up with some main features you will include for this writing prompt. Okay. Have you finished? You finished studying the pie chart? Wait for some more moments. It can be challenging, right? There are 4 pie charts and but 2 countries. So main features and language. All right, so again, let me know if you have finished with starting the pie chart by typing yes in the chat box, for example. Oh, thank you, Chị Vân. Oh, okay, in here even she already typed the main features according to her. So according to him, so the youngest age group in Zeeman, probably like in 2000, right, was much more than those in Italy. Thank you. Okay. So on the next slide, you can see a template, probably like something we may reach a consensus before assigning a score, that like which feature we will be looking for On the left, you will see like the outline. So there should be an introduction, overview, body 1, body 2, and an overview. The students have to mention the most significant features of the pie chart, which is the changes over time. And for the introduction, that would be better for students if they are able to paraphrase the main, the keywords in the introduction sentence. Show, for example, an ages into population, projections, projected figures, and the overview. So both countries are expected to undergo major changes. And as you may already list in your note, so in the body, we can divide into two body paragraphs, one for each country, German and Italy, and in German in 2000, right? So slightly more than 50% or more than half of Germany people were under 14, and less than half of Germany people was aged 15 to 59, and only 3.6% was over 60. And in 2050 for German, you may also identify certain trends. For example, for the youngest age group in German is expected to decline, while the other two age groups are expected to increase. And for the second body paragraph for Italy, in 2000, so second third of the Italian people were from like 15 to 59, right? And then a quarter, nearly a quarter was senior people, and less than 14% was the youngest age group. But then in 2050, the youngest age group will experience a decline, while the percentage of the senior population will double, and the people aged 15 to 59 will decline. So that will be what we'll be looking for in a student paper. And also, in the first step, you might also identify certain phrases that you will look for. Less than 14 years old, from 15 to 59 years old, what will be some synonyms? And then 60, more than 60, right? And language, we will be looking for language for trends, increase, decrease, proportion, half, quarter, forecast, exceed, projected, and will be future tense. So in the first step, that's what we'll be doing. Identify the main features, the outline, the language for a writing prompt. In the second, also in the first step, that's the time for the teacher to look at the rubric together. So because in our participants today, most of you have experienced scoring IELTS before. So my job would be a bit easier because you're already familiar with the IELTS writing task 1 rubric with 4 criteria and 9 band scores, right? Okay, so that's all for the first step. Let's move on to our second step of the norming section. So in our second step, the teacher the grader would assign a score for each criterion stated on the rubric: task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resources, grammatical and accuracy, individually using the rubric. So let's spend around 10 minutes. Oh, maybe not that much. Around within 10 minutes for each of you to look at the student response and assign a score for 4 criteria based on the IELTS writing rubric. Okay, so let me know, and please type the scores you have for the 4 criteria in the chat box once you finish. Okay, thank you, William. Okay, thank you, chị Vân. Okay, so I have received the scores from William and Miss Vân. How about the other participants? Have you finished scoring or you want some more minutes? Okay, so for the interest of time, I probably will continue. And while some of you may be still scoring the papers, so from the participants, we have okay, so we have the scores from William, and we have the scores from Miss Thanh Vân. And William, he assigned 6 task achievement, 6 coherent cohesion, 6 lexical resource, grammatical range, accuracy, and Miss Vong, she assigned 5 for task achievement. Same result with William in coherent cohesion and lexical resource, but only 5 for grammar. And so overall, William assigned a 6 for the writing task 1, and chị Vân, she assigned a 5. You can see like, so in our norming section, once the graders have finished giving a score, we will be making a table like this one with the name of the rater and the scores. And then now I will be asking like, I can see the difference in the scores that William and Vân gave for the task achievement of the writing task. So I will be asking either William or Miss Vân to explain why. So, and I will be the same for grammar, for example, but here for the criteria that we already reached a consensus, I think that would be okay, right? We don't need to discuss them. So, anh Đức ơi, it is possible like you can give the right to speak to William and then chị Vân so that they can share with us why William assigned a 6 for the task achievement and chị Vân assigned a 5 for task achievement, and same thing for grammar and accuracy. Thank you.
It means that I share this cohort or?
So it is possible how, so if William or chị Vân want to talk, to express the ideas, would it be okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Yes, so please,
yes, please.
William, so would you like to
sure,
tell us why? Thank you.
So I was going back and forth between a 5 and a 6. I thought it was right on the edge, but I was feeling generous today, and I do think it, you know, it did meet the general requirements for the task. Pretty well presented, with a nice clear purpose at the beginning, but there were some certain inconsistencies. It wasn't phenomenal throughout, but and it was, I feel like adequately highlights is a phrase that is in the rubric and seem to apply.
Yes. Can you reread that line in the rubric again?
Yeah, presents and adequately highlights key features, bullet points, but details may be irrelevant, inappropriate, or accurate or inaccurate. So I felt like that was a good descriptor.
Thank you. So so William, you found the most like the sentences, the description that match closely to your assessment.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's why you assigned a 6.
Yeah.
So thank you, William. So chị Vân, how about you? Do you agree with William? Why did you assign a 5 for task achievement? Chị Vân ơi. So I couldn't hear from Vân. So how about the other participants? If you have like a different scores from William, any of you have a different scores from William, or you all agree with William? Hey. All right, so probably like you are still considering how to assign a score, right? Thank you, William. And how about like grammatical range and accuracy, right? So here, Ms. Vân assigned a 5, but you think it should be a 6. And again, can you share with us why do you think, William?
Yeah. So there's I think a good mix of sentence forms, some simple, some more complex, but there are still some errors, subject-verb agreement, and but they're relatively minor. They don't interfere with meaning. And if I'm truly honest, I've been teaching for much of the last 6 years in US pathway programs where a lot of our students are entering at the 5 level, and I thought this looked a little bit better than a lot of my students when they enter. So that kind of tipped it towards a 6. Just to, yeah, slightly better. And on the vocabulary, there's a lot of the things that you would learn in a writing class, the transitional phrases, and pull it up, comparative forms, whereas, on the one hand, on the other hand, in contrast, overall. So good use of those standard phrases.
So which description does it match on the writing rubric for your evidence?
I'm thinking for grammatical range and accuracy. I think makes some errors in grammar and punctuation, but they rarely reduce communication. Yeah, that's the key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Anything else, William?
Nope.
Thank you. And for coherent and cohesion and lexical resources also, did you also follow like the writing criteria? And for lexical resources, for example, what are some vocabulary that you considered that make you think the lexical resources performance of the student's paper should be a 6?
2 things. I think the adequate range for the task,
Okay.
and makes some errors in spelling and or word formation, but they don't impede communication. I feel like with just a slightly charitable reading, you know what the writer is trying to say there, and yeah.
Right. So when you say understand what the writer is trying to say, I think it's probably like a coherent and cohesion, don't you think? Ability to connect between ideas. So for coherence and cohesion?
Yeah, oh yeah, certainly. That applies, I think, throughout. And it arranges information and ideas coherently. Yeah, I mean, there is an overall progression there. I mean, I would say there's signs of studying in the first sentence, sort of setting a main idea, and the final sentence summarizing, and the clear use of 2 paragraphs to organize information, some of the cohesive devices. So there's an overall progression there.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, William. As you can see, I have just asked William to give some evidence for his decision-making behaviors. And William also, when he shared his perspectives, you can see like he tried too much between the evidence and the rubric in order to make sure that his writing performance is accurate. Thank you, for sharing, William. And in the final step of the norming section, as I told you before, it would be much better if we had a score from an expert examiner. So let's see what an expert examiner trained by the Cambridge Testing Agency, what had they give to this student's performance. Okay. So this writing performance is assigned a 6. And for the task achievement, that's the comments from the expert rater, sufficient details. Even there are some problems interpreting one pie chart, but the writer did mention clear comparisons and but the overview only focuses on only one age group. And for the lexical coherence and cohesion, the information is well organized with the use of cohesive devices, as William already listed before. For the lexical resource, it's for the vocabulary is adequate, so you can understand the student's writing and you can find the target language that we already identified in step 1. There are some errors with the word formation. However, they do not affect understanding. So these are the descriptions for lexical resource. And for grammar, simple and complex sentence forms are produced with few grammatical errors. However, the range of structures may not be diverse. So there are like some comments from an expert rater. So you can think about how your scoring performance is compared to the expert scoring, and you can adjust your scoring, for example. So thank you. So that's the end of the norming section. And as I told you before, it's my first time conducting the norming writing online. And thank you very much for sharing perspectives with me. Later on, I will be probably like sharing the slides on the Victeso website. And you will find some more information. So this one is a script scored and given feedback by one of my colleagues. In order to give him a better sense of scoring, he used the highlighters yellow, blue, orange, pink for different criteria, and he unhighlighted them in the students' responses. It's one way that you may consider when you assign a score. By highlighting the certain features, you can find out the match between the description and the language. And also later on, I also, for my previous thesis, I interviewed and had some graders, scores, and give feedback. So if you have time and if you are interested in how the rating decisions are made, please feel free to take a look at the slides. The references, right? The books, I enjoy reading this book a lot. They are really intensive, but good source. Finally, thank you very much for attending my workshop. I hope you have a productive day. Thank you. If you have any questions, thank you, William. You can type in the chat box, but I'm not sure if we have time for questions and answers now. It's nearly like 10:28, right?
Yeah, that's right. On behalf of all the participant and the moderator, we would like to share our thanks to your great presentation. Due to the limited time, so we cannot include all of the questions in the Q&A. So if you have any questions further, you can email to the presenter directly. And on behalf of the VIC 2020, we wish you all the best with the productive day and the meaningful rest of our virtual convention. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Now I will start this meeting for the recording. And if anyone would continue to join, please try to join the link again. And we have the next section in the 10:30 a.m.